everyone, I'm Liz. Welcome back to my channel. So I started knitting this year. It was one of my New Year's resolutions for 2022 that I was going to learn how to knit. And it's been just over 2 months since I got my knitting needles in the mail. So I thought this would be a fun video to sort of like show you how it's progressed in what I think is a pretty short time of 2 months and all of the things that I've made so far. In the future or coming up, I hope to do some sort of like more monthly regular content of like showing what I'm working on, maybe what I'm planning on working on, and any yarn acquisitions, as well as, you know, interdispersed videos here and there of yarn hauls, because I have gone a little crazy and I've got a lot of yarn, but I'm knitting a lot, so I feel like it's okay. So let's start at the very beginning. This is the first sweater that I ever made back in January, and this is the brick sweater pattern, which is a free pattern that I got on Ravelry. I'll try to link everything down below. And then I used Wool of the Andes worsted weight from Knit Picks is the yarn for this, and the color that I've used is green tea heather, I believe. So it's this nice, bright, vibrant green. I was hoping that the heather would be a little bit more prevalent. There is, especially like while I was knitting it, I definitely saw that there were like flecks of yellow or flecks of other colors in there, but the overall effect isn't very heathered, which I was a little bit disappointed in. So as I said, this is the first sweater I knitted. This is actually the first garment I've ever knitted. I did a couple of like swatch gauges or like, you know, testing out little things like this. This is the first thing I ever like knitted in earnest. So there are mistakes in it, and I'm okay with that. Like, I was learning as I go. I might frog back some of it and fix those mistakes now that I've learned a little bit more. But I've worn it a lot since I've made it, so obviously it doesn't detract from my enjoyment of the sweater. So this one, I would say the sleeves are a little long, so that's one thing I would frog back. I was unaware that when you blocked yarn, especially like 100% wool yarn, that it would grow so much. So I think that I overestimated how long I needed the sleeves to be. So that's one thing that I might want to frog back. But for now, I just wear it, you know, with the cuffs turned up, and that's fine. So this one is a really simple pattern. It's one of the reasons why I picked it as my first pattern. It does have a KFB raglan increases that go down here. And then other than that, it's just plain stockinette stitch in the round. After you finish everything, you do pick up for the collar and do that one in a 1x1 rib. So let's see, mistakes on here that I would probably fix. When I was doing the 1x1 rib along the bottom, I don't know if you can see there, but the first couple of rows I kept getting off. It kind of looks more like seed stitch or moss stitch than a 1x1 rib there, and it's right in the center front. So that's something that it really bothers me. Like, I can see it from a distance. So this is the one thing other than the sleeve length that I might frog back up and fix. This is a quite long sweater. All of the sweaters I've made after this, I've done them quite cropped comparatively. I just think that this isn't the most flattering length on me. Because I have a defined waist, I kind of like to show that off by ending the sweater closer to my waist and not on my hips, which ends up making me look very blocky. There are waist shaping decreases in here, but I don't know that I can see them. Not enough for it to make a difference. You only decreased 2 stitches in a round instead of like 4, so you only decreased on one side of the marker. So I feel like there just wasn't enough of a difference decreasing 2 stitches every 10 rounds. So that is my first sweater, the brick sweater. So that one took me about 2 weeks to do, which felt like it was forever. So when I decided on my next project, I wanted something that would go faster. So I was like, oh, I'll pick bulkier yarn and that will make it go a lot faster. So what I did is I think it's called Winter Wonderland is the pattern from Drops Design. And this is their Polaris yarn, which is a super bulky yarn. So this one, it's single ply. It sort of looks like roving. It's super bulky and very inconsistent in that, you know, sometimes it got really narrow and sometimes it was really thick. So there are some areas in the sweater that look like the stitches don't look very even because of that inconsistency in the yarn's width. And I think it's just the type of yarn it is. Also, because it's a single ply, I've only worn this once or twice, but I'm already starting to see like a lot of pilling. I think it's not the best in terms of long-term wear. So, but it definitely served the bill of super bulky are fast, because I think this one only took me like 5 days to complete from casting on to finishing. So I have worn it a couple times. It's bulky, it's really heavy. One thing I'll say about this Polaris yarn is that I wet blocked it, right? So I soaked it for 15 minutes before blocking it. It took about 8 or 9 days for it to dry after doing that. And I was super worried that it was going to start smelling like mildew, which thankfully it does not. I live in a really, really dry climate. It is incredibly rare that anything takes more than a day to dry. A lot of my laundry I hang or line dry or hang up to dry, and it never takes more than a day because our relative humidity is so low. So the fact that it took 9 days for this to dry completely means that like this sort of like untreated wool roving type single ply yarn just really holds onto moisture. So I don't think that I will ever soak this in water again. I think if I need to wash it, it's going to be more of a steam clean. Again, same problem as the green sweater. I got a little overly ambitious and made the sleeves much too long on this one. I do have 2 skeins of this left over, this yarn. So I cropped this one a lot shorter than the pattern was designed for, just because, again, with the super bulky yarn, I didn't want it to make me look bigger. I wanted it sort of end closer to my waistline. But same problem as the green sweater in that I made the arms much too long on it. So I might go ahead and frog those back and make them shorter. Like I said, it knits really fast, so it wouldn't take very long for me to fix this. Like, it would just be an afternoon to fix it. I'm not entirely sure that it's worth my effort, just because of the fact that even with 2 wears, this material is just not holding up very well. So after that, my boyfriend had asked me to make him a hat. So I chose the chunky Ramona pattern, again on Ravelry. Everything will be linked down below. And I used the Lions brand wool thick and quick tweed, and this one is in the colorway Kale. He'd asked for a dark green hat, so that's why I went. It's a very simple hat. I think it took me an afternoon. It's just a 1x1 rib all the way up, and then you just do a couple rounds of decreasing at the top before putting on your pom-pom. So I was really, really happy how this one turned out. I did cast on an extra, I think this pattern calls for casting on 44 stitches, and I cast on 48 because I know my boyfriend's hat is a lot bigger than mine, and it said it was meant to fit snugly on a woman's head. So I gave him an extra 4 stitches to make it a little bit wider. I have since made another one for myself. So I made mine in the color Raisin to go with my purple wool coat. And I did 44 stitches cast on for this one, and this one fits me fine, and Tony can wear this one as well. So I didn't really need to do the extra stitches for his green hat, but it's fine that I did. It still works well for him. And then I just got these faux for pom-poms. He wanted an obnoxiously large one, so I got him an extra large, and he likes it a lot. He's worn it at the grocery store. The cashier said he had a sick hat dude, so I think it was a successful knit hat. So I have this one in Kale with the thick and quick wool ease yarn, and then, as I had said, mine is in the color Raisin with the same thick and quick tweed wool yarn. Yeah. Really happy how this one turned out as well for me. Let me try it on. Yeah, it's super warm, even though this yarn is, I think it's like 80% acrylic and 20% wool. I wanted to use something that was a little bit more washable, just because I know we like to walk a lot and we'll sweat a lot in it. So it'd be nice to have something that was a lot easier to make. And then the pom-poms I've held on with just, like, I thread them through, and then on the inside, just have a large button that I tied it on. So these pom-poms come off really easily. They're not sort of like permanently attached to the hat. So when I first decided I wanted to knit, I wrote down in my notebook all of these different techniques I wanted to try, because I wasn't entirely sure what I would like doing, and so I wanted to try everything before I sort of like got into my groove. So I wanted to try lace work, I wanted to try color work, I wanted to try cabling, I wanted to try holding yarns double, I wanted to make a turtleneck, so I've done a lot of those things, and I'm slowly learning what I like. So the next sweater that I had made was a chance to try out lace work, and this one is the white peacock pattern from Drops Design. And again, I've used Drops Nepal in this in the color Red Clay. I absolutely love this yarn. I've gone ahead and purchased this yarn again in a different colorway because I like this sweater. It turned out really, really well. Like I can wear it without anything underneath it, and I love this color a lot. This sort of like muted terracotta color is just gorgeous. So this one, it starts with a 2x1 rib that sort of like expands out into these like peacock feathers. See, the lace is not terribly evident here, but there is some lace work that occurs on the ends of each of those feathers. Hopefully you can see there with there. That's a little bit better. You can see it. I did make a mistake in this one in the back. It's not terribly evident, but right around here, you can see, so right around here, you can see that I got all of my stitches shifted by a couple stitches. So the point of the peacock feather gets moved over a little bit. But like I said, this is the back of the sweater. I tend to wear my hair down, so it'll cover it up. It certainly hasn't deterred my enjoyment of it at all. So I'm gonna pretend like it's not there and that it's part of the like handmade nature of it and be okay with that. This one I think is the perfect length on me. I did the pattern's suggested length. Like they have you do the yoke, and then once you split off for the sleeves and you do the rest of the body, it said to just go for another, like, I don't know, X amount of centimeters. So I did exactly what they had said, and I thought the length was perfect. I did add a little bit of length on the sleeves because I do have long arms, but this one is, again, the perfect length. So moving forward, I go ahead and I've measured this one, and I know that this is how long I want my sleeves to be. Next up, I wanted to try a color work pattern. I was originally thinking of doing a Nordic pattern from Drops, but I wasn't like terribly in love with the design. So I went looking on Ravelry, and instead I found another Jennifer Steingrass pattern that used the same weight of yarn that I was planning on using. So I went ahead and switched my pattern idea, and I did this one, which I think turned out really well. So this is the Alaska yarn from Drops, which is 100% wool. I hated knitting with it. It was really scratchy and it made my hands really dry. I was constantly needing to add lotion because my hands just felt like dry and cracked whenever I was knitting with this. I will say that after I blocked it, it feels a lot better. And this is actually one of the sweaters I've worn the most frequently. So I will say finished garment wise, the yarn is fine. I just hated the process of knitting with it. And because knitting takes a week or two, I don't really want to be knitting with yarn that I hate. So I don't know that I would use Alaska again, even though it's a really economical yarn. So this is just a 2-color colorwork pattern. It was pretty simple. I think it was good as like my first colorwork sweater to dive into. This one also had some German short rows in it. I only did, you have German short rows both in the yoke and after the body separation. I only did the ones in the yoke because I suck at doing purls. I really need to work at that. But I was like, I hated the way that my purl rows looked. I felt like it looked really odd in the back, and so I didn't want to do them again. Now that it's blocked, I can't tell where those were. So I just need to, I think I would do the more German short rows in the future. But first time trying, that was my experience. Most of her patterns don't have a ribbed neckline. They do like a rolled neckline where you like use a really small gauge needle to do a couple of rows, and then you just start knitting in earnest. I did extra rows on here. I think I did 5 or 6 extra rows because people were saying that this pattern in particular, because the color work starts so soon, you were going to see those floats, that it would like roll forward and you would see the floats. So I did a couple extra rows, 5 extra rows of stockinette stitch to make sure the floats didn't show, and that worked out really, really well. I don't think it's noticeable at all. For my first colorwork sweater, I feel like the tension is pretty good. Again, it was only 2 colors, so it was a little bit easier to tackle. And I quite like this. It's like, I think it's dark turquoise and light gray was the color I used. On the bottom, I chose to do a 2x2 rib. I hadn't done that before, and I just kind of like wanted something different because I didn't love doing 1x1 rib. I think the 2x2 rib looks really cool, and I've used it again on other sweaters that I've made. So will be using 2x2 again. It took me forever. Like at the time, I felt like, I think I took a whole day just doing the rib along the bottom of the sweater, thinking that like it's gonna be super bulky, like long, but now looking at it, it doesn't look like it's that long. It looks like it's maybe 3 inches wide, but I like how this looks, so I need to stick with doing larger rib like that, because like for this sweater, they said to only do like 2 or 3 centimeters of rib, and I feel like this one doesn't have enough of the rib along the bottom of the body. Like it's not substantial enough. I definitely like this rib a little bit better, so in the future I need to buckle down and really do substantial ribbing along the bottom of my sweaters. So the next one I did is using the Drops Melody yarn, which is, it's mostly alpaca, I want to say, and then it has a little bit of polyamide in it. And this is the Moroccan Muse pattern, also from Drops Design. This pattern is supposed to be striped in multiple colors. I just liked the silhouette and shape of it, so I did it in a single color. So this is the curry colorway. It's quite an oversized sweater. It has these really lovely big giant balloon sleeves, which are lots of fun, sort of impractical, but I really, really like them. And this one was knit from the bottom up, which is a technique that I hadn't used before. All of my other sweaters I've made are top down. So from bottom up, so you start with a ribbing and then you work upwards, and then once you get to the armpit, you separate them into 2 and do back and forth up to the shoulder line, and then sew along the shoulder line. Once you've sewn there, you pick up stitches along the sleeves and knit in the round down from the armhole. So it was a completely different technique of knitting that I've done before, so that was new. But other than that, this one didn't really like fulfill any of my checklist of like techniques I wanted to try. As I said, this one seamed along the shoulders. I don't mind doing seaming. I know a lot of people complain about it, but I don't mind seaming, but of course that's probably because I like sewing. And I think that, I just think that I don't like doing purl stitches. So that was the only thing that I hated, is that there was all this section here where I had to do front and back work. The next sweater I did is the Sunday sweater pattern from Petite Knit. I think this is one that everybody does. So this one here has, I bought 3 patterns from her, but this is the one that I was really excited to try first. So this one used the technique of holding yarns double. So this one is a combination of the Kid Silk mohair held with Drops Air. I used the color brown in Drops Air and the color light beige in the mohair, and I really like the sort of like variegated texture it gave it. It looks more heather to me than the green sweater. I like how fluffy and soft this guy is. It is a little bit itchy. I really like the way the neck was done on the sweater. So you did, a good 8 or 9 centimeters of 1x1 rib, and then you knit it together. You fold it and then knit it together. So it's sort of like all encompassed into one. You don't have to seam it, and it still maintains really stretchiness, like it goes over my head fine. But I think it's a very seamless way of doing that like folded neckline on a sweater, and I think the folded neckline makes the sweater look fancier. So this one is just alternating between knits and purls and expanding and adding increases in the yoke to give you this sort of like rays of the sun. But I think it looks really good. And again, just like this yellow sweater, this one has these really nice, lovely balloon sleeves that are puffy and impractical and lovely. I did make these a little bit longer than the pattern suggests, but not too long. It still sits, right on my wrist bone. And then the last sweater I have made is the one that I'm wearing right now. This is another Jennifer Stein Grass pattern, and this one's called Trista, I believe. Of the sweaters I made so far, colorwork was my favorite, so that's why I wanted to try some more colorwork. This one uses 4 different colors, so gray is the main one, and then I have like a light blue, an olive blue, and a petrol blue. I absolutely love how this looks, but I will say that when you got to the little diamonds that are on the bottom of the yoke here, you end up having to hold 3 colors at once, and I do not have that down yet. My tension got really, really wonky right there, and I've worked on it a little bit with my needle, trying to like loosen it up, get it looking okay, but I think that I want to make this sweater again, or make this pattern again in some different colors, but I might sort of just eliminate that row because I'm not sure that it adds that much to the design, and it made it very difficult for me. Like those last couple rows were just really, really hard. So I might just leave those off next time. But I did go ahead and keep the design along the wrist cuff because I thought that looked really cool. And I only had to hold 2 colors at once, so I knew that was okay. But yeah, really happy how this turned out. I finished this one like 2 days ago and I blocked it. And this is the first time I'm getting to wear it, but pretty happy with this sweater. So I hope you guys have enjoyed a look at all of the things that I have knit up in my first 2 months of knitting, and I will see everyone next time. Take care.